Lois Lerner has repeatedly refused to speak out, asserting her Fifth Amendment rights. So her emails may be the only way we can learn what really happened here. But the IRS is not making it easy. Just last Friday, late in the day, in a multi-page report, they buried the news. We learned that nearly 2 years of Ms. Lerner's emails vanished when her computer crashed. Then we found out that 6 other IRS employees' emails apparently went poof. Terrible, terrible computer glitches at the IRS. Now we are hearing that Lois Lerner's hard drive not only crashed, but that it was recycled or wiped clean. Why'd they do that? And today a bombshell report shows one of those 6 who also lost their emails magically also happened to be a frequent visitor to the White House. And she just so happened to be chief of staff to the former acting IRS commissioner, Stephen Miller, who resigned in the wake of the targeting scandal. But even with all that, remember what the president told our own Bill O'Reilly about the IRS.
There were some boneheaded decisions out of a
but no
local
mass
office.
corruption.
Not even mass corruption, not even a smidgen of corruption.
Morgan Wright is a cybersecurity expert and CEO of Crowdsourced Information, and Jay Sekulow is chief legal counsel of the American Center for Law and Justice and represents dozens of conservative groups that say they were targeted by the IRS. All right, Jay, I want to start with you on this.
Megan.
What do you view as the most significant development now? That the assistant to the commissioner went to the White House 31 times, or what?
Yeah, well, that's obviously very significant, and the fact that her emails are also gone. As you said, they're no longer in existence. You've got to ask, and I think it's clear now, we've got 6 other officials whose emails are also wiped out, but there is one critical email, and this is the connect Megan to the White House, and that is there was an email between Lois Lerner and Nicole Flack. This was the individual that was the chief of staff, and that email said we want to look at making criminal cases against our clients. They had no evidence of it. They said they'd have to piece them together, and then she makes 35 trips to the White House.
In May of 2013, Lois Lerner sends an email to this Flax, Nicole Flax.
Yeah.
That's the one who assists the commissioner.
Yeah.
Lois says, hey, I just got a call from the DOJ. They are asking who they can talk to here at the IRS about Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse's idea that we go ahead and criminally prosecute some of these conservative groups who we think may be liars about their political activity. So Lois is calling Nicole saying this Democrat wants us to work with the DOJ to see about criminally prosecuting the conservative groups. Nicole Flax writes back and says, I think we should do it. So these two have this conversation. Nicole proceeds to go to the White House dozens of times, and now both Lois and Nicole, whoops, had a computer glitch and we can't get their emails. Do I have it right?
Well, yeah, Megan, but yes, you do. But there's something else. When that email came out, 2 days later, Lois Lerner issued the fake apology. And at the same time, Nicole Flax went over to the White House after that email about the criminal charges. So what was the discussion at the White House? What was that about?
So this is right as Lois Lerner went
amazingly has their emails. Yeah.
Right as Lois Lerner went public with it, she was meeting with Nicole about possible criminal prosecutions. Okay, Morgan, let's talk about what's real and what's not real. What they said about Lerner's emails, and I don't have the details about the other 6, but they said Lerner sent an email from her desktop. There was a crash. She called up. She emailed. We have evidence that she did complain at the time she had a crash. They said, the IRS said in a letter to the Congress, emails are, they go to servers. They're not just on your desktop, but they go to the servers. But then the servers rewrite every 6 months. And we couldn't get the emails off of her fried laptop or desktop, and then the server had rewritten. Why is that not plausible?
I just don't believe it for a couple of reasons. Number one is because they maintained information on taxpayers for years back. Number two, from the mid-70s backwards, you can go to the National Archives and get a lot of information. From the mid-70s forward, there's a lot of information. And third of all, I had actually taught a lot of people from the Tax Inspector General for Tax Administration, agents that actually did investigations inside the IRS and were able to get emails 5 or 6 years old themselves. So it's kind of not plausible to think that they all just disappeared at the same time and there's no recovery possible.
Well, if they're not telling the truth about the servers, then they're in serious trouble. But Jay, what is your evidence that this really, I mean, look what we've seen. Look at HHS and Sebelius and the healthcare rollout. Look at the VA mess. Is it so implausible that the IRS is such a hot mess that it's got this crappy IRS server that it rewrites? It never should rewrite. Magically, they always have the records they need to audit us. But when it comes to their bad behavior, it's disappeared. Is it so implausible?
Yeah, it is, Megan, because those emails went to other people. So it's not just the IRS. So the Department of Justice, the Federal Election Commission, there were recipients to these emails. So unless all of their emails were also mysteriously wiped out from the servers, and by the way, there's a Federal Record Keeping Act here, and you're supposed to keep hard copies of significant data, and this would be certainly significant data when you're talking about mass criminal indictments against people engaged in free speech activities. So those emails went to somebody. Somebody has them.
The White House
we're going to get them in discovery if the government doesn't produce them.
The White House came out and Jay Carney said, there are none. He said, you want the communications between Lois Lerner and the White House? We checked. And there's no communications between no emails between Lerner and the executive office of the president.
Yeah, except Nicole Flax was now, we know, was the conduit to the White House. So let's get her emails and see if there's emails between Nicole Flax, the chief of staff of the IRS commissioner, and the White House. And I bet you will find those unless their computers crashed as well. I suspect what you're going to find is the conduit to the White House. Now we know, by the way, is a defendant in our lawsuit, Nicole Flax. She's a defendant in our lawsuit. So we're going to get that information as the case moves forward. The ridiculous nature of this is Lois Lerner is one important element, but she is not the most important element. We're now finding it went a lot higher than Lois Lerner. Chief of Staff is the #2 slot, basically.
Quick question before I go. Morgan, do you know what the 6 other employees, whether their emails and documents are missing from the same time frame as Lois's?
I think they're missing from a little bit later, but Megan, you bring up a point, as both of you being lawyers. In political corruption, it's follow the money. Here it's going to be follow the access trail in the audit logs. There will be a paper trail. If it was once or twice, that's one thing. But when it's 6, that defies, it just defies probability.
According to Rhonda Nahans Drake, assistant professor at New York University, the odds of these 7 drives crashing would be 1 in 3.1 million. Add to that the probability of not being able to retrieve the data from each one, and the odds approach that of you alone being hit by a meteor. A coincidence, Mr. Obama? Don't paint a turd orange and tell me it's sherbet.
There will be a paper trail of somebody accessing systems, deleting things, and they've got to get in and preserve that information now, because without the hard drives, the only thing you have left is the paper trail.
Earlier, IRS Commissioner John Koskinen faced an outraged group of lawmakers on Capitol Hill who say that they and the American people have been misled by him and by his agency when it comes to the IRS targeting of conservative groups. Lawmakers asking why it took more than a year for them to find out that the emails from the woman at the heart of this scandal appeared to have vanished quite some time ago, and that her hard drive had been, quote, recycled, losing the exact emails that they were seeking. Strange, right? Here is some of the most heated moments from today's hearing.
What I didn't hear in that was an apology to this committee.
I don't think an apology is owed. Not a single email has been lost since the start of this investigation.
Nobody believes you. Monday, our investigators asked your agency whether any other hard drives crashed, and we learned that 6 other hard drives of the people we're investigating were involved. You didn't tell us that.
We told you on Monday.
On Monday.
And what did you do with the information?
Because we asked you. You are the Internal Revenue Service. You can reach into the lives of hardworking taxpayers, and with a phone call, an email, or a letter, you can turn their lives upside down. You asked taxpayers to hang on to 7 years of their personal tax information in case they're ever audited, and you can't keep 6 months worth of employee emails? I don't believe you. This is incredible.
I have a long career. That's the first time anybody has said that they do not believe me. I
don't believe you.
That's fine.
Being forthcoming is to say,
I'm sorry.
You know what, investigators, Congress who's investigating this about
Will you let him answer the question?
I didn't ask him a question.
Mr. Ryan tried to lead the impression that only by being asked did we reveal the information about the hard drive crash. First of all, I would reiterate the information about the hard drive crash is in the emails that you and your staff have had for some time.
There's just no credibility. This is not partisan. This is just Americans frustrated with an arrogance of an agency that is above the law in their opinion.
Why should anyone believe you? The IRS denied for 2 years targeting of Americans based on their political beliefs. That wasn't the truth. They said it was a few rogue agents in Cincinnati. That wasn't the truth. You said you were targeting liberal organizations. That wasn't the truth. And then you assured us you would provide us all the emails in May, and that wasn't the truth. And today, you're telling us out of thousands of IRS computers, the one that lost the emails was the person of interest, in an ongoing congressional investigation. And that is not the truth either. This is the most corrupt and deceitful IRS in the history.
Just today, Josh Earnest said this is Republican conspiracy theories from the podium of the White House.
There's zero evidence to support Republican claims. And that's even, again, these are investigations that have a pretty transparent political motive. So I'm not sure that there's a whole lot more to be discovered here.
I mean, people want answers from their government. They want their government to tell them the truth about what's happening. And the result is, Fox News poll just came out a couple of weeks ago, only 37% of the American people trust their government. 37%. The Gallup poll recently found that 72% of Americans think that big government is the biggest threat to the country. That includes a majority of Democrats. That's the largest number in the history of the poll. American trust in the competence and honesty of government is eroding, which is exactly the opposite of what Barack Obama's goal was coming into office.
New Fox News polls show 76% of voters believe the emails missing from Lois Lerner, the woman at the heart of the controversy, were deliberately destroyed. And that crosses party lines. So where is the media coverage in all of this? Brent Bazell is president of the Media Research Center. The first big piece of news was in this report on Friday. The IRS tried to bury it in this 27-page report, but they revealed that they were missing 2 years of Lois Lerner's email and other documents. What kind of coverage did that get?
Let's put this in perspective. Nobody believes that story. Absolutely nobody believes that story. Everybody believes there's something very bad that went on there. How did they cover it? CBS Morning gave it a story, and CBS Evening News, no coverage. ABC Morning, no coverage. ABC Evening News, no coverage. NBC Today Show, no coverage. NBC Nightly News, no coverage.
Wow. Not mentioned. Did they get to it this week? I mean, because Friday they buried it, but by Monday it was everywhere.
No, they didn't get to it this week, and then you learned yesterday that the hard drives have disappeared as well.
Now there's no more hard drives. They've been wiped clean.
Right. So the level of disbelief has now been doubled or quadrupled. So what's the coverage? We looked this morning, nothing. Tonight, nothing. This is a cover-up. And you have to ask yourself, Megan, at what point will the news media, and isn't that a rich irony, at what point will the news media decide that this is news? And when they have covered it, Megan, now I listened to your last two guests, and they're giving such great insight and analysis as to what's going on there, but what they're telling you opens up a whole Pandora's box of investigative possibilities. A journalist could go in there just as wide-eyed as possible, completely objective in his or her perspective, simply wanting to drill down to the truth. And if the truth sets them free where they're innocent, that's a wonderful story for the network. If the truth is that they're breaking laws, and this is increasingly, by everybody's analysis, a lawless administration going on here, if that's the truth, then a journalist's job is to get to the bottom of that. That's what their job is. So when they're involved in the cover-up, what it tells me is that, look at the news today that showed that the confidence in these networks is at an all-time low, 18%, all-time low. And this, Megan, is why.
Yeah. Is it true, before I let you go, Brent, that NBC Nightly did not cover their own polls on 54% of the country losing faith in the president?
But this is not the first time it's happened. When it's a poll that's negative to the person they support, they just don't cover it. Why the heck did they pay for it?
Well, we covered it. So thanks for that.
And I might say, Bill, this is my chief worry as a conservative, that we have put so much power in the office of the presidency that someday the wrong man could come along. And I wouldn't be so concerned about whether he could use these powers to perpetuate himself in office, but how he would use these powers to destroy people that disagreed with him.
As the big brother looks closer over our shoulder, we grow timid against speaking out for truth and our beliefs against falsehoods and wrongdoing. Fear of IRS audits, bureaucratic strangulation, or government harassment is a powerful weapon against freedom of speech.
These are just Washington fights. They're fabricated issues, they're phony scandals that are generated. It's all geared towards the next election or ginning up a base. It's not on the level. And that must feel frustrating. And it makes people cynical, and it makes people turn.